has happened, and they don't know how to stop it. The elite plan to use this disaster to accomplish their timeline of 2010 and 2012, and I plead with you, if you do not have my 6 DVD set, that you immediately pick up that telephone and call the number that you called, or go to prophecyclub.com on the internet and get my 6 DVD set. You must know what they are going to do between now and 2012. Well, I'll tell you one thing they're going to do, and this was just announced. And I'm going to read you this one and give you the name. You can go and find it for yourself. This is John Hofmeister, former president of Shell Oil. Now, not BP, but former president of Shell Oil. He is the author of a book entitled Why We Hate the Oil Companies. Isn't that neat for the former president of Shell Oil to write a book like that? I'm going to read you exactly what he said. The BP disaster has raised questions about halting risky domestic oil extraction procedures altogether, and including deep water programs. But Hofmeister, a longtime advocate of more domestic drilling, says America simply can't afford to stop drilling. America now, our imports of foreign oil have jumped to 58.2% in 27 from 34.8% in 1973, according to the latest annual figures by the U.S. government. He goes on, while we dream about new energy sources that in decades of the future may be able to be produced, the price that consumers will have to pay for things like gasoline, electricity, and diesel would just skyrocket if America halts offshore drilling. Prices could get to the, please listen to this. Prices could get to the point where fixed income and low-income people are simply taken out of the personal mobility marketplace, which would be a shock and unnecessary because of our unwillingness to produce domestic resources. Now, his final statement. People also don't want oil washing up on their beaches, whether it be in the Gulf of Mexico or Florida or maybe up the East Coast. Do you think that American public is going to say, we don't want any drilling at all offshore? Well, here's his projection. Only if American public is willing to accept $6 to $8 per gallon gasoline as an alternative when they get it, if they can get it, Hofmeister says. Folks, this is a prediction based on what this man says. If our president continues to act like a 13-year-old man, mentality of that, in office as President of the United States of America, and continues with his doctrine of no more drilling, you will have $6 to $8 gasoline in the very near future. I know, it's back down at the pump right now, but you haven't seen anything. You just wait. You're headed for something startling. If we do not allow continued drilling, and I'll give you an alternative to that in just a few moments. I need to read you this one. The oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico may have apocalyptic consequences, a report by the Russian Minister of Natural Resources said. The British petroleum oil spill is threatening the entire eastern half of the North American continent with total destruction, the reports say. An ominous report by Russia's Ministry of Natural Resources warned of the impending danger resulting from the British petroleum oil and gas leak in the Gulf of Mexico, calling it the worst environmental catastrophe in all of human history. The European Union Times reported. You can find this for yourself. I continue. Russian scientists believe BP is pumping millions of gallons of Corexit 9500, a chemical dispersant agent, under the Gulf of Mexico waters to hide the full extent of the leak, now estimated to be 2.9 million gallons a day. Experts say Karzite 9500 is a solvent more times more toxic than oil. The agent, scientists believe, has a 2.61 ppm toxicity level, and when mixed with the warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico, its molecules will be able to phase transition. This transition involves the change of a liquid into a gaseous state, which can be absorbed by clouds. The gas will then be released as toxic rain, leading to unimaginable environmental catastrophe, destroying all life forms from the bottom of the evolutionary chain to the top. I read you exactly what came out of a very reliable scientific source in Russia. Well, none of this was necessary. We didn't have to do any of this. None of this should have ever taken place. And the only reason it took place is because we have been betrayed by our politicians in Washington, D.C. They had this in the congressional record. And this, none of what's happening would have to happen. The U.S. Geological Service issued a report. It's in the congressional record. And it's about the Bakken oil reserve, the largest domestic oil discovery since Prudhoe Bay, Alaska. It's in North and South Dakota and Montana. It is on the land, not in the water. They have admitted that the Energy Information Administration, EIA, estimates it at 503 billion barrels. Even if just 10% of the oil is recovered at $107 a barrel, we're looking at a resource base worth more than $5.3 trillion. That's approximately half of the national debt. Terry Johnson, I'll give you some names here. You can go look these up for yourself. Terry Johnson, the Montana legislative financial analyst, said that he gave this report to Congress, and he said the jaws of the congressman almost hit the floor. They know it. And they're sitting there doing nothing about it. It is an unexcusable. I hope you know what to do when November comes around. Every single one of them need to be thrown out on their heads. We have more oil, I'm reading now from this report, we have more oil inside our borders than all the other proven reserves on Earth. Why do we go into the Gulf of Mexico and drill a super deep well? Only because they would not allow companies like Shell and Exxon and BP and others to drill in a known oil reserve on the land. And Congress, until this day, will not allow that Bakken oil reserve to be produced. I can't find words to express my disdain for what Congress has done. Listen to the amount of oil that's there. 8 times as much of oil as Saudi Arabia. This is in the Bakken Reserve on our own soil, North and South Dakota and Montana. 18 times as much oil as Iraq. 21 times as much oil as Kuwait. 22 times as much oil as Iran. 500 times as much oil as Yemen. Oh, by the way, 22 times as much oil as in Iran, and we don't have to lose any lives to get it out of the Bakken Reserve like we had to lose in Iran to get that. Well, it didn't have to happen. It should not have taken place. There is no reason for that super deep well to have been drilled off of a floating platform in the Gulf of Mexico in 5,000-foot water. It's inexcusable. There is no reason for that super deep well to have been drilled off of a floating platform in the Gulf of Mexico in 5,000-foot water. It's inexcusable. And there have been policy decisions that have been made by our federal government. Well, I won't go any further. I'd like to tell you what the elite have told me. You'll get this in depth in 8 hours of DVD viewing on my 6 DVDs. But so that those of you who haven't gotten them yet will understand, let me just give you a few of the expressions of, they're going to use this Gulf of Mexico oil gusher